other things, led to shortages in Ghana and other parts of Africa. Very embarrassing. I mean, 60% of the arable land in the world is in Africa, but we can't feed ourselves. Now, why do you think that is? I mean, that's a starter for this conversation before we go into the role of digital financial services in agriculture as a whole. I don't know whether you like to start with that.
Okay, thanks. So in development economics, for agrarian economies, you see that contribution to GDP is quite high. But as you begin to diversify, the value, the real value of production tends to decline. So in a sense, it's good, but then the important thing is what is the real contribution that we're seeing from production to the economy of the country. The biggest part that we should rather be looking at is to what extent are we adding value to our raw productions. And that's where the conversation should be, tailoring. But the challenges that face agriculture, I think, are multifaceted and also interlinked. Beyond what you just mentioned with it was COVID, and then we had the Russia-Ukraine war. And I think one of the biggest challenge that is also affecting us is because a lot of our fertilizer we use is imported. All right, so, and prices from FOB to the retails actually double, multiplied more than 300%. So smallholder farmers who have like 2 acres probably need 5 bags of NPK for their field, cannot afford. They will just buy one and use for that. And our average consumption is less than 15 kilograms per hectare, and they recommended for real productivity is about 50 kg bags per hectare. So we are already not producing. So there are so many multifaceted problems. Not to talk about the big elephant in the room, which is climate change. Now, our agriculture is rain-fed, right? And so weather patterns have changed. Now you are having, rains are coming earlier than expected, short period, and then prolonged droughts. So it has several factors that really contribute to the challenges that we face. So that's what I would say. Okay. But then there are also technologies that are evolving, and then it's about we making them accessible to smallholders and leveraging tools that can make that happen.
We'll be getting to that part of the conversation. Now, Madam Dusay, I know that you have a huge passion for smallholder farmers. Now, from your 25 years of experience, if you sit back and scan the environment, what is plaguing our ability or hindering our ability to be able to transform ourselves using agriculture? I mean, services is doing amazing work. Industry is also doing its part. But agriculture, from your perspective, what is affecting us? What is stopping us from, maximizing or optimizing the benefits that this particular sector can provide to us?
My simple answer is that we have not been focused on agriculture. We talk about it, but there's not much investment in agriculture. And I'm glad we are now asking questions on how we integrate MT4D into the agri sector, because largely we have overlooked them. Okay, the age of a farmer right now is about 50 plus. Okay, the youth are not in there because it's not interesting. The methods is still the
cake,
cutlasses and hoe. So that whole sector has been overlooked. But the truth of the matter is, for all of us in this room, there's one thing that we have in common. What is it? Is that we eat food. Mm-hmm. Where does food come from? From the farmers. So it is time that we begin to look at how we can also offer services to the smallholder farmers, because they cannot afford the 4Gs, the 3Gs, all the technological, big things that are happening now. They can't afford it. But what do we do? How do we bring them up? How do we grow more food?
How do we come up with tailor-made solutions that would benefit them and also benefit us as a whole?
Yes. We really need to bring them up. Not just that, but we also need to encourage the youth, make it attractive for the youth to also come in and take over from the elderly.
Great. Now, Prof, I know that, I'm sure you've put some time in analyzing this problem and where we are and what we need to do to get out of this rut we find ourselves. Because the conversation has been happening for years on end. If you read our documents, there are policy documents out there making recommendations, panels such as these that get put together. There's a lot of conversation. But when the time comes for us to take the needed action, it appears we are not able to do that. From where you sit, what's your unique perspective regarding the low performance when it comes to agriculture for Africa and as well as Ghana?
Yeah, I think it's governance. That's the major problem, the leadership in terms of government. And I think they will have to rethink in that direction. Because we have two approaches that you can use to get interest of people in something. One, their existing need, and two, you have to create the need. Yes, then you can get things running. So let's move down locally. So for example, if a DC in a particular district, and I realize that they can produce a lot of yam, okay, then it's my responsibility as government worker to see how best can I connect these farmers, their produce to other sectors. Can we increase the volume? What can we do to improve it? Then we work on that. And can we produce certain things that we can get interest of people into the products of the farm, of the yam, so that we can sell it to them and make sure we create some kind of value and chain of the product that the yam that we are coming out with is very important. Now, government too have to take an interest in it, because if we import too much food into the system and we don't produce, it's not good for us, because we are killing skills in agriculture as one, which is not good for our future. Now, two, the quality of food that we are importing might not be good for us per se, and you realize the tomato that we produce is also not, we consume more, it's not that good for us.
Not to cut you, a leader I know once mentioned that he found himself having chicken that had been stored for close to 20 years somewhere. You know,
yes.
in the
and we also don't have monitoring mechanisms. We don't also test the chickens that are to see whether.
Sorry. Let me try and get you this mic. Yes, if you can pass the mic on to him.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we also don't test the food that we store to see whether they are of good quality. You know, my field is computer science, not in agriculture, even though I found when I was young. And now I'm applying agriculture to computing to agriculture, which is actually the future. So maybe when we come to that side, I always ask my students these questions: that do they believe that they belong to the kitchen? You know, it's something that they always say that, no, especially the ladies, that you don't belong to the you don't belong to the kitchen and kind of a thing. So I always ask them that question, and I listen to them. So
this is for both male and female, right?
Yeah, sure. But first, try to move it towards the ladies, because they will have to change that mentality. So I let them understand that if you are successful in computer science, and then you build algorithms, systems for other side of, and then you work very hard, you come home, or you eat outside, and the quality of food that you eat is not good for the body. Because right now, if you go onto the street, when you look at what they cook, we can say that at least 70 to 80% of the food is not always good for the body in terms of consumption. And you are not able to consume food very well. It affects the way you think. Your entire body, the machinery that you are dependent on to do every daily activity is affected. Health.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, and a whole lot of things. So the food is very important. What we consume in terms of food for the body, it's very, very important. Else we will not also have been going into research work into precision medicine to see how we can develop sensors that we have to put into our bodies to measure the performance of our bodies regularly and stuff like that. That research work is also ongoing. So the food is very important, and I let them understand that we all have to be good at cooking currently, because when you go out, the amount of food you consume is not good. So they should take the kitchen life very serious for both guys and then so that they know what to eat. Because balanced diet is not dependent on what it's not fixed. It's dependent on what your body needs at a particular time and what is missing in the body. So
for you in all of this, leadership of government is key in transforming agriculture as we have it now.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of creating the needs and other things. And then also realizing that we are losing a lot in terms of the amount of tomato we import from Burkina Faso. Have we even made any steps to see how they grow it. Can we grow it to their standards? Can we also boost that, reducing our importation and also maximizing production for our consumption, as well as also exporting to make. So government have to take a critical step to see how they can reduce their import of agri products and also increase their export of those things. And I think that will solve most of the problems alongside the chain.
Okay, nice one. I mean, I'm going to move on to the next gentleman, Mr. Nikoi. Now, for him, a lot of time the financial sector is bashed for not supporting agriculture. They will tell you if you go into the banks or the loan books of the banks, a lot of the time they're not supporting farmers because they're high risk and the likes. I would like to know from your perspective, the answer to the same question. What is plaguing agriculture in Africa from your perspective as a banker?
For agriculture in Africa, there are a number of factors. I think the earlier ones have talked about it, but 3 or 4 key things can be pointed out. For instance, just this month, FAO is saying that you have about 45 countries in the world who need to be supported with external food. And the interesting thing is that 1 of them is just from Europe, 2 from Latin America, 6 from Asia, and 33 from Africa.
Wow.
And what is the reason? Number 1, either shortfall in production, which is unable to meet the requirements and the needs that we need. Number 2, conflicts, which prevents people from engaging in the productive activity to be able to generate enough. And number 3, sometimes economic conditions and things make it extremely difficult to be able to engage in the direct production. And so agriculture in itself, it's not an easy task, especially in our environment where it's more manual, like Madam said, the technology has not been fully deployed to make it much easier for all of us. And so if you are not very resilient as an investor, you would back out of it in no time. So these 3 key things, in terms of access, people having access to it. Number 2, eliminating the conflicts that is plaguing us, that is not allowing people to focus. And I believe strongly that for Africa, we haven't moved our mind towards solving our food problems. Because if we do, we have the capacity, we have the resilience, we have what it takes to be able to produce enough, not only for ourselves, but for the entire world.
For the rest of the world. All right. And finally, your take before we move on to the next round of questions.
Okay. Sometimes I ask myself this question. Are we really in need of food as Africa? I do not think that is necessarily the case. But I think it has more to do with value addition. My brother just gave an example. We import so much tomato from Burkina Faso.
Neighbors, Burkina Faso.
Yeah, Burkina Faso. We produce more in this country. But what happens to that? Most of the cases, we lose it. Yeah. So if we were able to, in a way, preserve it, we may not need as much as we import from Burkina Faso. And it's the same thing happens to other food crops we produce. So I think in a lot of cases, post-harvest losses contribute so much to the shortages we have in our country. It's not like we are not producing enough. We are producing so much. But there are technologies we need to adopt which would help us to cut down on the losses we have, either on the farm or during storage.
Now, some will say there are cartels that are preventing, that benefit from the imports from Burkina Faso. And like, I don't know, Madam Edouce, I don't know whether you have any reaction to that. The fact that
the reaction that I have to that is that there's a problem there. Yes, maybe we are producing a variety that is not attractive, that the consumers don't want. So then what's the point of producing that? And then go to another country to bring in what the consumer wants. So that's the problem. The problem there is that fix the variety. Let the variety be what the consumer wants. Then we will not go to the next country to bring it in. So there's a lot of problems in the agriculture sector. Burkina Faso is just next door. Why is it that all this time we haven't figured out, okay, what are they doing? What variety are they planting? Why are our tomato traders traveling so far?
Risking their lives.
Risking their lives. It's not comfortable to drive by, to go by road all the way to Burkina Faso. So what is it? But for the longest time, the same thing happens. We talk, the same thing happens.
Now, we know that the digital ecosystem has transformed our lives. When you look at different sectors, from health to education, and I mean, we've seen it transform a lot of sectors. We are talking about 5G, people, doing operations from different parts of the world, whilst their patients are in, different parts as well. For you, is there a role for technology in transforming agriculture? I mean, what barriers do we have now that technology can actually break? I don't know if you want to start.
Okay.